We're here to help. That's what we're here to do. You guys are going to use these things, and so we're here to. We're in this series called Life Hacks. I'm glad you're here today. I want to say hi to my mom, who always watches from Maryland, Western Maryland. So hi, Mom. I'm going to be up there next month to see you. I can't wait. I hope you're doing well. And I want to say hi to everybody at our West End campus. We have a campus, if you don't know this, at Washington Avenue and Shepherd Drive inside the Loop. And today's a very special day. They've been working hard for about a month on a sort of a refurbishing project for our children's area. There's brand new furniture, brand new toys, brand new paint, everything. And so I want to ask you, if you're going to West End today, would you go by and see our open house there at our children's building? Alyssa would love to see you. My wife Lisa is down there, and they're giving away these free cups, these amazing cups filled with gold. So you're going to love it, or candy or something. And so go by and get your cup and support them, encourage them. Even if you don't have kids that age, you'll love seeing this space. You can tell folks about it. Welcome to all those at Missouri City. I'm glad you're there. If you're at Missouri City today visiting, go by see Terrace or Nathan. They'd love to shake your hand and tell you what's going on. And welcome everybody here at the Richmond campus. I'm so glad you're here. Well, listen, we are in this series called Life Hacks, and we've been looking at things that are very ordinary and simple, but looking at them just a little bit differently so that we can live a life that's more efficient, more effective. And so we've been doing some things like looking at how prayer works, and we've looked at last week, what are we living for, and being on mission. And I was thinking about the topic today, which is margins and how to live with some margins, because I was thinking about extreme sports. I love extreme sports, you know? And extreme sports are where people are doing something so extreme there's no margin, and one mistake means a disaster. So I don't know if you know this or not, but Lisa and I are very much into extreme sports. So this summer when we took some time off, we were doing some extreme sports, and I brought some video footage of our vacation. So watch this. That was our summer. What'd y'all do? Huh? I would love to be able to do something. I don't have the guts for it. I'm scared of heights, all that stuff. We watch an extreme sport like that, though, with sort of our hand over our eye, because, you know, one just slight misstep, and it's splat against the rock. I mean, it's just an awful thing. We're morbid by even watching this. This will tell you how extreme sports have evolved over the decades. When I was a kid and teenager, our extreme sport athlete was a guy named Evel Knievel. Do you remember Evel Knievel, right? You're old if you remember Evel Knievel. I don't think he's alive anymore. But he would do this thing where he'd take a motorcycle and he'd jump over buses. It's amazing. And just from that point, I'm like, oh, no, he's going to. And he would crash a lot and all that stuff. And there's something about living on the edge that we really like to watch other people do, right? But when we do that, it's just there's no margin for error in our life. It's not sustainable, and we just can't live this way. But we do it. Our culture, and you're going to hear this a bunch of times today, our culture, the world we live in, pushes us where there's no margin in our life, no margin in our finances. We spend all that we have and more. There's no margin in our morality. We don't really quite know the lines, or the lines that we have, we take ourselves right to those lines. There's margins in our schedule, in our time, in our emotions, and we don't have space, right? And because we don't create space, it feels a little irresponsible to have extra. But that's the way God sort of designed us, is that we don't consume all that we have. So if you have a financial margin, for example, what happens at the end of the month is you have money left over. It's kind of a unique thing. If you have emotional margin left, right, you don't fight over silly things. You have some capacity to tolerate other people's deficits in life. But when we don't have any margin, we're sort of like an open nerve ending, then what happens to us is that everything is a big deal. So we all need margin in our life. We really do. We all need margin. A pastor in Atlanta defined it this way for us. He says, margin is the amount beyond what is needed. And we are consumers by nature, and we consume all that we have. So to live sustainable lives, we have to have margin. Margin's the white space around the words in a book, right? And without that space, the words don't make sense. They're very incomprehensible. So what you have to do is you have to have some space. But we live in a highly technical sort of environment that just takes all the margin out of our life. This is why we're stressed out. This is why we're anxious, right? We live in a culture that takes us to the limits. And we have to come to a place as a follower of God, or even if you're not a follower of God, this will encourage you today. We have to figure out how to live with margin, because we don't. Here's what happens to us. First of all, we have more stress in our life. You know this because what happens is when you have less margin, you have more stress. No margin, lots of stress, lots of anxiety. This is what's happened to you. Some of you this morning on the way to church had a fight because you're running late. And I know it's her fault. I get it. But you can feel it happening, right? You know, you're coming, you know that clock's ticking down. You know, here at the Richmond campus, every seat is taken, and you have a certain seat you want to be in. And if somebody takes your seat, you know, you feel like you're not going to go to heaven or something, you know, and so every seat's taken. We have overflow space. You don't want to be in the overflow space. So you're, you know, and so that clock's ticking and you're stuck in traffic, or you got a late start, and your stress level goes up. You have no margin at all. We know this is true. This is what road rage happens. We like margin, right? Because it's stressful for me. Have you ever talked to somebody that's a close talker? You know, where they just invade your space? That creates so much stress and anxiety for me. You know, they just kind of get it right up on me, even if they have fresh breath. You know, it's just like, dude, why are you in? And even though you kind of step back and try to be nice, you know, you step back, man, they're right up on you. You know, it's just like, dude, are you going to kiss me? What is going on? Because you're like right in, I mean, it just creates, we don't like parking spaces that are too, everybody drives a big car here in Texas, right? You go into some of these parking lots and you're just trying to get in there. You don't like that. It creates stress for us. If you don't have margin, here's the other thing, it creates a self-focus, because when you're stressed and you have anxiety, you're trying to fix a problem, and that fixed problem is, that's my problem, and that's all you figure out. The other thing that happens is relationships suffer. This may be the biggest, really, sign that you don't have enough margins in your life, is when your relationships suffer. Because intimacy is built in the margins of our life. Busyness is the enemy of intimacy. And we are a busy people. Anybody come in here today going, man, I'm bored, I ain't got nothing to do? I mean, everybody's working hard. And now that school is starting back here in the suburbs, man, everybody is crazy. It's just crazy busy. And so we got to figure this out, you know, because if not, what happens is our relationships suffer. And here's the key. Having no margin is not a good success strategy for your life. And we think it is. We think if we just work harder, we're going to get ahead. But having great relationships is a great success strategy for your life. Your relationships matter. So there's this great story in the Bible that I want to read today. It's two ladies that are sisters, Mary and Martha. They had a brother named Lazarus. You may have heard of him. He got raised from the dead. It's kind of a big deal. But Mary and Martha was there. And what was happening at this period of time is that Jesus had become quite famous. Now, this is a time, remember, 2,000 years ago, before The Bachelor was on TV and all these other great life-changing television shows that we're all addicted to, right? And so when a new teacher would come into town that was really good, and Jesus was considered this, that people would start following him. He was sort of the series they were hooked on, right? And so they would listen to him and they'd follow him around. And that's what was happening, because he was doing not only teaching, but he was doing these supernatural things. He was healing people. He was walking on water. I mean, just some amazing. So he became quite famous. right, in the day, in that area. And there was this town named Bethany outside of Jerusalem where Mary and Martha lived. And when Jesus showed up in Bethany, Martha had him over. And I want you to watch a couple things. One of these ladies has no margin in her life, and the other one does. And see if you can point them out. Here we go. Now now as they went on their way to Bethany, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house, right? And so here's the first thing I want you to catch in this story that really happened here. Martha notices that Jesus is coming to Bethany, and Martha is the one that invites Jesus to the house. So Martha initiated an invitation to Jesus. So I want you to watch what happens. Martha had a sister, and her name was Mary. Now, and who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teachings. So you get the picture there? But Martha was, say that word with me out loud, distracted. Come on, West End, Missouri City, you're not participating. Let's try it. Ready? But Martha was what? Distracted with much serving. And she went up to Jesus and she said, Lord. Now that's an interesting way to address Jesus, because I don't think they were recognizing him at this point as the Son of God and the promised Messiah, but one with authority. So she was saying, Jesus, the one with authority, use your authority because something bad is happening here. So she addresses Jesus as Lord. And she says, Lord, do you not care that my sister, that dirty, rotten sister of mine, y'all have a sister? I have a sister. I know how Martha felt. She gets away with everything. She was the only girl. I have a lot of issues. So that dirty sister of mine, right, has left me to serve alone, right? So, Lord, the one with authority, command her, tell her, then to help me. But the Lord answered her and said, Martha, Martha. Now, this is interesting. You should know this. Jesus did not stutter. This is not like Martha. He's saying, emphasizing, you may know, why is there two Marthas there? You know, it's like, no, here's the deal. He's saying, Martha, listen to me, Martha. Let me get your attention, Martha. Don't miss this, Martha. You are anxious and troubled about many things. But one thing is necessary. One thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. So we know from the story that Martha was the one with no margin, and she totally messed it up. Now, I think it's so ironic that Martha is the one that initiated the invitation to Jesus to come to her house, and then when he got to the house, she totally left him to serve him. Right? And she forgot him. And we do all this. Now, you know the pressure of having somebody important over at your house, right? We do this when we have guests at our house. We do this less now. But you start cleaning up frantically. That's the picture. And you got, people are coming over, and you just throw stuff in the closet or under the bed or under the rug or outside or in the garage. You got the kids all anxious. Somebody's coming over. And it's like, fire, fire. You know, it's like, sweep it up, sweep it up. Act like we got it all together. No, this is how we live. Look how nice this is. But you open that closet up, you're a hoarder. You know, I mean, you got a problem. You got a problem. We used to do that a lot. Lisa, I said, we're not having anybody over. I can't take the anxiety of the whole thing. We got to clean up, we got to impress and all that stuff. Now we're older and we're in our 50s. It's like, who cares? You know, just pick up that underwear. Let's go. And, you know, it's that kind of deal. It's like, so Martha, I can relate to Martha. She's got the stress of the whole thing, right? She's got the stress of the whole thing. Like, Jesus is here. This is an important rabbi. So she thought the right thing to do was a bunch of tasks. And Mary is sitting at his feet listening to him teach. You can see it. You know, she's sitting there going, oh, my God, it's amazing. I wish my sister Martha could hear this. This is incredible. I mean, this is life-changing stuff. And Jesus is this great rabbi's here. Where's Martha? And Martha's in the kitchen clanging. You know how that works too, right? Like, you don't want to shout out, can somebody help me? So you just start beating the pots real loud, you know? You ever do that? It's like, hey, I'm in here, serve me, that kind of deal. So that's the deal here. Martha had issues. Now, see if you can relate to this, because this might be a signal for you that you don't have enough margin in your life. Here are the Martha issues. First of all, we saw that she was distracted. This is the biggest thing. She was distracted. Here's when you know that you don't have enough margin in your life. When tasks become more important than people. That's when you know. You go, oh. So doing something for Jesus was more important than being with Jesus. And that's a common mistake. So you got to figure, you get distracted. We have so many distractions that happen in our life. We're distracted with our own goals. We're distracted with our own ambitions. We're distracted with life. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a resolution person, which means I don't like unresolved issues in my life, so I don't know what happens to me, but I've got this mental list that happens that I need to check off things on the list, like completed, done. And I go down the list thinking, okay, I've done this, I got to do this. And it creates this urgency in my life that says, I got this to do, I got so much to do, I got this to do, I got this to do. And the fantasy here, the lie that I believe is that once I check off everything in the list, I'll be done. But my list continues to grow because I'm married. And it just kind of gets more and more and more. And it's like, you just never get to the end of things you could do or even things you should do. So tasks become very important to us over people. And we feel like completing the task is an important thing to do. And it is important at some level, but it's not more important than the people in your life. It's certainly not more important than God being the center point of your life. I mean, if I ask people here, hey, we want you to serve. There's a big push at West End in Missouri City because of the growth at those places to serve and to get involved. And we need your help in children's ministry and in guest connections in the parking lot. We need your help everywhere, right? In youth and students and all that. The number one thing is, man, I wish I had time. How about being in a small group where you can grow and learn and do life with other people? Man, I wish I had time. Just don't have. I mean, nobody's got time. And the reason we don't have time is because we're doing other things that we've deemed to be important. Now, I don't know where all those things should land on your list, but I know people are supposed to be really the most important thing, and we get distracted. You know the thing that creates the most distracted in our culture today? It's the iPhone. It's the iPhone. We had a no texting at the table policy at our house, Like, don't bring that iPhone to the table. And you go into a restaurant today and you see a beautiful family sitting around a table and they're eating and they're all on their iPhone. And I'm not judging because I do the same thing. Lisa and I, now that the kids are gone, we go out to eat a lot. And for whatever reason, something happens like a lull in the conversation. I mean, we've been married 31 years, so sometimes you just kind of run out of things to talk about. You're just like, and we're just kind of changing thoughts. Like we think something and she goes, mm-hmm. And she'll think something, I go, I don't think so. And I mean, it's weird what's going on, but we just have this law, and so she picks up her phone and I pick up my phone. We just start doing things, She's usually playing solitaire, which is really insulting to me. I was just like, I'm not more important than solitaire. Now, of course, I'm doing something important. I'm checking sports scores. And I'll just notice we'll be 3 feet apart and we're on our phones. So I start texting her dirty messages. It's just sorry. I'm married. I can do that. And what I really like to do is take a picture of her on the phone. I hate to do it. We're real quiet. And then I email it to her or text it to her, and she's sitting right there. It's so funny. You're going to do this now. That's what you should do. When you're at a table with people you love and they're all on the phone and not talking, just start taking pictures of them. Text it out. Now you got that thing called the drop. What's that thing where you just kind of have, what? AirDrop. God, I'm an idiot. Yeah, AirDrop. Just AirDrop it to them. That's so funny. I'm changing your life right now. This is it. But we all do it. We get distracted, We just, things happen. I mean, I'm the worst. I've got this ESPN app on my phone. And when the Astros score, it rattles my phone and rings. And I'm like OCD on this thing, man. I gotta look. But, usually it's happening kind of at church or something important. And somebody's telling me their life story because I'm the pastor. And this thing goes off in my pocket. And I'm thinking, I wonder what the score is. I'm trying to pay attention. And I'm trying to figure out. Oh, she's not doing well. And she's in the hospital. You want me to pray? Let me write down what it is that you want me to pray for. I want to make sure I get all this. Bless her heart. And boom. I don't know why I'm like that. It's just like, who cares right now? It's just, and so we've set up alerts to invade our margins. We've set up technology to distract us from one another, right? So we got to figure this out, guys. The other thing that Martha issue was that she felt alone. So if you're feeling alone, now maybe you're new to the community here, and if you're new to the community on all 3 campuses, I think we have a book called Love Where You Live. We'd love for you to have that book free of charge. You don't have to fill out anything. You just go get a book. In the Richmond campus, I know it's here. I don't know about the other campuses, but we have this book for you free of charge. And we know moving to a new city is very, very difficult. And we, as River Point or West End, we want to help you make friends quick. But you can have a lot of friends and be in this community for a long time, and because you're so busy and have no margin in your life, you feel very much alone. It says in that story that Martha was doing all this serving alone. She felt alone. And because she felt alone, here's the next thing she felt. She felt like a victim. I'm a victim. So I don't know about you. If you ever feel like you're being victimized, that you're a victim, like, woe is me? I do. I feel that way. And what Martha didn't realize, Martha felt like everything she was doing was right. She was doing good things for a good person. She was probably doing what her mother did, or her father did, or somebody she saw. She was doing what she knew to do, busy work. She was relationally inept, and it created this deficit in her heart. She felt alone, and then she felt like she was victimized. Here's what the question must have been in her soul. Why doesn't Mary get up and help me? I'm all alone. Nobody cares. Then she turned it on God. Now, she didn't know Jesus was the Son of God at this point in the story, but she turned to God. She said, Lord, you in authority. She said, here's the question. Don't you care? See, that's what happens when we don't have margins. We put ourselves to the edge and we exhaust ourselves and we get into trouble, or we cross some moral boundary, or we go broke financially, or we have no emotions left, and we've created this system ourselves. We've self-inflicted many of the times by the decisions that we made, by the schedules we keep, and then we get ourselves in emotional trouble or relational trouble or financial trouble or moral trouble, and we wonder if God really cares about us. Don't you care? Don't you care? I mean, that's really the ultimate question. If you're not a believer or a follower of Jesus, you've come to a place in your life probably where something tragic has happened to you. Many people this happens to, and it's happened to me. Something tragic happens to you, something unfair, something harmful has happened to you, and you've come to believe that God doesn't care, and you're a victim. Not only does God not care, your sister doesn't care. Nobody cares. And when you get to that place, man, the next thing happens and you get angry. You just get angry. You ever just met an angry person in life? Just mad at everything. Just anger is a secondary emotion to these other things like feeling alone and feeling victimized. It's that fear that happens, and all of a sudden what happens to us is we just go, oh man, I'm so mad. So any of these things, if you're experiencing these, and I've experienced all these things, right, is a sign that maybe you need more margin in your life. Now, I'm not very good at this, and I know there are seasons in our life where we have less margin and seasons in our life where we have more margin, but we can't keep running as fast as we can for as long as we can. And what drives this? What creates this need for us? Well, we're taking all of our cues from the culture in which we live. And this culture is going to drive you to the edge. And what really creates it for us, because we see all these people doing all these things and accomplishing all this stuff, we feel like we have to do it, and we have a fear. Fear's the problem here. We fear that we're missing out or getting behind. We feel like we're getting behind, like this is what I got to do to compete in this competitive world, to get ahead. Now, I understand getting out of college and starting a job and all that stuff, but somewhere in this whole fear thing that we have that's driving us to the edge, where we as Christians think our job is to ask God for more strength to get through the busy day that we've created. I understand all that. There are periods of time that we just don't have any margin, but you can't live like that. And these signs that these Martha signs, might be signs that, I got to create some margin. I just can't run as fast as I can for as long as I can. So I have to have time for people. I can't just be running from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. This is especially true if you have kids. You see, we're starting school here in the suburbs, and our kids are starting, and they're involved in everything. I had 4 kids, all in high school at the same time. Terrible planning. It just happened one romantic night. And so it's like, and they're so, all of them involved in sports and stuff. It's like Vietnam, it's just like, so much. And my kids are grown and gone now. And I can tell you this, if you got kids coming up and you're signing them up for everything, be careful. I just want to tell you from the other side of where you are. Let me just tell you this. Your kids are not going to grow up and say to you when they're in their 20s or 30s, they're not going to look at you and go, Mom, Dad, I just want to thank you for keeping me so busy. I mean, I had practice before school, then I had to go to school, and then you were on me about that SAT prep course. I had to do the SAT prep course. Then I had to go tutoring because my grades, and I had to be in that top 10%. I got all the, and then all of a sudden I wanted to be on the team, not on the team, but I wanted to be on the select team. And Dad, remember when that time you lied about my age so I could be on the other select team? Oh, man, thank you so much. I was so busy. They're not going to do that. They're not. You know what they're going to thank you for if you can figure out how to put margin in your life? They're going to say, thank you for spending so much time with me. That's it. You see, kids spell love T-I-M-E. That's what they do. And they may complain, and they're going to get that fear of, well, everybody else is doing it. And you say what your grandparents said. Well, if everybody else was jumping off a bridge, would you want to jump off the bridge? My kids would say, that's what I'm talking about. Everybody's jumping off the bridge. I want to jump off the bridge. It's that kind of thing. And you just say, I'm not going to go the way that the world's going to go because it's going to destroy my relationships and take away all my margin and all my space. I can't be a human. I'm not being. I got to figure this out. So in our house, we had no media Mondays, Every Monday, we just did not know. My wife hated it. We were so bored. Just looking at no telephone, no TV, no video games, because that was my day off. And we had to, check this out. We had to do stuff together. This is where we started jumping off the roof into the pool. We built a human pyramid. I said, invite all your friends over. We're going to build a human pyramid. How big? How many friends you got? Every Monday, somebody got hurt. It was so awesome. It was so great, man. We say, let's quit when somebody starts crying. That's when we quit. And we invented games like this cops game that we played. And they are not going to remember all the scores of all the games that you were involved in. They're going to remember that time you fell out laughing because that was so funny. And that takes time. So you got to figure it out. Paul figured this out. The apostle says, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world. The pattern of this world is to push you to the edge. The pattern of this world is more, more, more. Have more, do more, accumulate more, achieve more. They get some sort of trophy from the world that's going to say you succeeded. That's not the way to a happy life. It's just for the way of the world to go, well, that guy's got it going on. But inside you're dying because your relationships are suffering. Inside you're dying because no trophy or amount of money or accumulation of wealth or achievement satisfies your soul. None of that does that. Your comfort won't make you happy. So if you're trying to achieve a more comfortable place in life, you may miss it. That's all the pattern of this world. But he says instead, be transformed. Do the opposite. By the renewing of your mind, by changing the way you think about your life. Change the way, in light of this relationship with God, don't take your cues from the patterns of this world. Take your cues from your relationship with Jesus, from God. And you say, okay, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to live? What do you want me to be valued? I don't want to be driven by the fear that I'm missing out or won't measure up or people will laugh at me. I don't want to be driven by that. I want to be driven by you. So what do you want for my life? What do you want for my family? And you pray things like, God, everybody in my family hates No Media Monday but me. Is this the right thing to do? Because it feels right and wrong all at once. And all of a sudden you go, oh, I'm not going to be transformed. I'm not going to be conformed to the pattern of this world. I'm going to be transformed by rethinking the way I think. The easiest thing you can do is just do what everybody else is doing, and it's the way of destruction. The road is broad on that way, but the road is narrow following Christ, right? By the renewing of your mind, it goes on and says, this way you can be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. That's what you want. So you got to figure out, you see, this margin thing puts this ideal to the test. This ideal is this. Is God's role in your life to give you strength to do all the things you want to do? Or is this idea of a relationship with Jesus about having God being more in control of your life than you are? Do you have the faith to say no? I feel sorry for moms. Because moms are busy all the time. At least this is what happened in our house. And Lisa would feel so guilty if she ever did anything for her. You know, because she felt like we have 4 kids and a very needy husband. And it's like, what? And I'm just saying, moms, listen, man, you got to have some margin in your life. And I'm going to help you. Here's where it starts with your kids. You look at your kids that want to go do that thing, and you just look at them. You should do this like on at least 3 times a week. You should just look at them and say this. I know this is strange. No. You just should say that. No. But I want to, and we have time, and we're not doing anything. I know, that's the plan. Well, I want to go this, I want to go that. No. That's not fair. I know. It's not fair. I'm going to sit here and read this book and do nothing. I'm going to sit here and read my Bible and do nothing. And it would really be great if you could just leave the room. It'd be awesome. Well, what am I supposed to do? I don't care. I really don't care what you do. Just don't get hurt and don't bother me, okay? Because you're important, moms. You're important. Your life goal isn't to make everybody else in your home happy. So don't do that. So I got some applause here at Richmond. Are people there applauding? West End? Most no. Okay, whatever. So that's the deal. So how do we do that? Well, here's what Jesus said in Matthew 11. We'll finish with this. Come to me, all who labor and heavy laden, heavy burdened, and I'm going to give you rest. So your rest is found in this relationship with God. This is how practical it gets. He says, take my yoke, not your yoke, my yoke, upon you, and learn from me. Don't learn from the world. Don't learn from your colleagues. Don't learn from your neighbors. Don't learn from your friends who are stressed out, right? Because your stress goes up, and your margins go down. So don't do that. Instead, what it says is, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is, say it out loud, easy, and my burden is light. So which burden are you carrying? His or yours? I'm not telling you to flunk out of school or flunk out of life or to be lazy. I'm just saying you're going to need some margin. I'm not saying you shouldn't achieve or try to get ahead. You should. I'm just saying, but when it costs you your margin, because you have some fantasy, because we say stupid stuff. Here's the stupid stuff we say. We say, work hard and, how's that go? Work hard and play hard. It's dumb. Just giving yourself some sort of permission to overdo it during the week and have no margin and then get drunk on the weekends. That's all that is. It's just like, and neither of those things are healthy for you. They're not good for you. Work hard and play hard. That's just dumb, okay? So don't say that anymore. Throw that shirt away. And, because we have this fantasy that one day when the weekend or the vacation, or one day when I make this amount of money, or one day when I achieve this, and the list just keeps growing. You don't know this because you think you have this fantasy that's when I'm going to have time on my hands. At my age, you start thinking retirement, that's when, that's it. It's a fantasy. Life, God's life for you can be rich and good now in the chaos that you find yourself in because you create some margin. I'm starving. I got to go. Let's pray, all right? Father, thank you that we don't have to take our cues from the patterns of this world. Teach us how to do it. We are all terrible at this. We're totally terrible at this because we live in a culture that is crazy. And it just puts so much pressure on us. So I pray that, God, you indeed would help us create margin in our life. In Jesus' name, amen.